Hey there, Kingsley here. Thanks for joining me on my YouTube channel where we share insights, practical tips, and strategic actions for married Christian professional spouses who are looking to strengthen their intimacy, deepen their connection, honor God, and ultimately have a happier marriage. And today we'll be unpacking the topic, transform your relationship and overcome intimacy issues. Now, I'm very much aware that intimacy is a fundamental aspect of any relationship. It provides a deep sense of connection and emotional bonding that takes place between two partners, two spouses, a husband and a wife. And that is such a critical aspect of every marriage relationship. However, it's not uncommon for couples. I've found in my own experience as a marriage and family counselor and relationship coach, having been worked with hundreds of couples over the years, it's not uncommon for me to hear the stories of couples who are experiencing a lack of intimacy in their relationship. And so what happens, it leads to a feeling of disconnection and in some cases, frustration, right? They don't have that intimacy that truly sparks the relationship, keeps it alive. And when it's not happening, it creates issues. So in this video, we're going to unpack this topic, but also explore through the lens of a story of Sarah and John. Now, Sarah and John are fictional couples, but they represent basically a lot of marriages, and maybe yours. As you listen and hear their story, see if you can relate to what they are going through in their relationships. And they're struggling with their intimacy. And so we're going to offer tips and strategies that Sarah and John and possibly you can use to reignite the spark in your relationship and how to overcome intimacy issues as well. So whether you're looking to improve your communication, increase physical intimacy, or just to navigate trust issues, this video has something for you. It has something for everyone, for you. And so here's what you might be thinking though going in, and I hear this so often. So what I'm mentioning here is something that I've heard from couples who have come in to see me for counseling. And I've also done in studies in my research and reading and continual education. These things pop up many times. But what I've heard many times is three main things sometimes is I don't have time for all of this because there's work, there's family, there's children and other responsibilities. And so couples are drained, are tired. And maybe you're feeling that way. And that gets in the area of intimacy. And you're simply saying, I just don't have time. I can barely keep up with my daily routine, let alone invest time in this area of my relationship. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm so exhausted. And what happened is that mindset is what enters to the relationship and makes it so difficult. And so I don't have time for this. It can be a valid experience, but it should be the exceptions, not the norm, if you're going to create intimacy in your relationship. Secondly, I've tried everything and nothing seems to work. You know, we've gone to counseling, I've heard, and people have come to see me as well, read self-help books and tried different strategies, but I've heard that we still can't seem to connect at a deeper level. Or thirdly, I'm not comfortable being vulnerable with my partner. And I can understand some things may have happened where vulnerability is not as easy as it once was, or it could be, because there's something that interfered with a relationship. Because you may say, I've been hurt, and I've heard this, I've been hurt in the past and have a hard time trusting others. So now opening up, and especially if my spouse have also been the one who hurt me, opening up and being intimate, it's scary, it's risky. It's not something that I'm ready to jump into right now. Now, if you relate to any of those, this resonate with you, Comment below and let me know if this makes sense or these happen to be your thoughts as you hear me introduce this topic of intimacy. Now, while you may want to then um, take this issue of intimacy and prioritize this idea of intimacy in your relationship, even if you're having doubts, even if you're having doubts right now, why you may want to then lead in this area, I want to share 3 reasons why you may want to do that. And number 1 is to remember that this is about improving your emotional connection. I've spoken about this in the other videos about safe emotional space. This is about improving that. So by investing time and effort in overcoming intimacy issues, you can improve your emotional connection and build a deeper sense of intimacy with your partner. Now, what this does, it leads to a deeper sense of closeness, right? Feeling closer, of love and trust. And initially, intentionally, but ultimately, that's what I'm looking for. Ultimately, it can strengthen the overall bond that you're having you need to have in your relationship. So improving your emotional connection is one of the reasons why you may want to think about or rethink this whole idea of intimacy. Secondly, it increases sexual satisfaction. Now, intimacy issues can often lead to, and I've heard this many times. I literally have heard this from couples more times than I can recall. But they talk about how there's a decrease in sexual satisfaction, and I know it goes both ways, but normally the husband is the one that will be echoes this thought and is more, make this a higher priority issue than sometimes his wife. And so he will be the one that will bring this up, and because he has needs, and this is a top need of his, right? One of the top needs. So it can lead to frustration and unsatisfying experiences for both partners. So by working to overcome these issues, you can improve your overall sexual connection and experiences where you can have greater levels of pleasure and fulfillment. And thirdly, better overall relationship satisfaction. Now, a lack of intimacy can have a negative impact on your relationship, as you may have been experiencing as a whole, right? And it leads to feelings, as I mentioned earlier, of disconnection, frustration, and even resentment. I mean, I've seen and heard that, even resentment in the relationship. So when you address intimacy issues head on, right, as we're doing right now, you're going to improve your overall connection, your overall relationship satisfaction, and you're going to ultimately feel, and the relationship will also project this feeling of content and fulfillment in the relationship. So by addressing these issues, as you're hearing, you can experience greater levels of closeness, of trust, fulfillment in your relationship. And what these things do, right? It overall have, I believe, a positive impact on both of you and your spouse's mental and physical well-being, right? Because I think when these areas are addressed and you're feeling closer and connected, you're going to feel better and you're healthier mentally and emotionally, and it strengthens a bond. You feel closer in your relationship, right? Now, if you're new to this channel and you're wondering who am I to be speaking on topics like this one, let me just say I'm Kingsley Grant, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. Now, as you've heard me mention about counseling hundreds of couples over the past several years, and having been married myself for almost 4 decades, I think I'm more than qualified, what would you say, to talk about topics like this one and do so with confidence. And I hope you appreciate that I'm bringing both my personal and professional experiences to the table and talking about this issue. So now the focus of this channel, basically, as you heard earlier, is to share insights and practical tips. And hopefully that is what you're going to get from this episode as well. Now, let me also recommend that you listen to my podcast at happiermarriagesecrets.com, happiermarriagesecrets.com/podcast. And you can have see all the topics I've covered so far and you can listen at your heart's content and just binge listening. Take me with you in the car, take me with you on your run, take me with you on your walk. Have me in your ears at all times. I have almost, I've 40 plus episode right now as of this recording. So you have a whole bunch of episodes to catch up on. Go and start today. Get caught up, and you get a good feel of my ideas of how I think. And some of it may surprise you because I may be contrarian in some of my thought process and challenge the status quo. And that is what I'm here for, because I want to give you the best value for your time of and effort in watching something like this or listening to my podcast. Now, before I share with you how to transform your relationship and overcome intimacy issues, I want you to do 3 quick things right now. Right now, these 3 quick things. First, I want you to smash that subscribe button. Go ahead, hit subscribe right now. Go ahead, hit subscribe right now. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Number 2, hit the like button if you're liking what you're hearing. And then you can also click on the notification bell, so you'll be notified of any new releases that I have on this channel, and you'll be immediately notified of it and not miss out. So let's dive into today's topic: how to transform your relationship and overcome intimacy issues. And I will share with you Sarah and John's story in a few moments. By the way, if you would want to get instant feedback on the state of your marriage and what to do about it, if you're not certain, then you want to take the Happier Marriage Assessment quiz. And it takes less than 90 seconds, and you can have your score and get a downloadable PDF that goes along with it and explain what your score is. If you're interested in that, you can go to happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz and take that quiz even after this video. I have all the links mentioned inside the description of this video. So in case you miss it, you can always find it in the description below, or in the comment section of all the links that you can go to. Now, so to transform your relationship and overcome intimacy issue is a question on the table, and this video will provide you with the answer. So I want to begin with this Sarah and John story, as I mentioned before. Again, they're fictional characters, but I believe they very much represent many couples, including maybe even you, right? Now, Sarah and John have been married for over 7 years, and they have 2 children. But lately, things have started to feel different for them. They're still in love, but something had shifted. Does that sounds familiar? Something has shifted. They don't talk as much as they used to, and when they do, they feel like just going through the motions. They have busy work schedules, and it seems like they're always exhausted and very much preoccupied with other things, not to mention the parenting duties that they have as well, because they're both working professionals. Now, their physical intimacy have decreased significantly, and they used to be very passionate and connected, right? Maybe at their early stages, but now they're rarely having sex, and when they do, it just feels mechanical and unsatisfying. Sarah would say that she feels that she just go along and just lay there, and that's it for her. That connection is missing, and so Sarah kind of feels that John is not interested anymore, and John feels like Sarah is just too tired or too busy or just is not into it. So you can imagine what's going on in their relationship. Now, as time have gone on, Sarah and John starting to feel more and more distant from each other. They feel disconnected. They would go out to dinner or watch a movie, but they felt like they were just going through the motions. They both knew something is wrong, but they just don't know how to fix it. They just don't know how to fix it. Now, I'm going to leave that story right there and we're going to go through this rest of the video and talk about what could John and Sarah do? What might they be able to do to fix what they don't know how? And maybe as you listen, you might also hear something that you can do to fix your relationship if you're also experiencing this lack of intimacy, right? Now, number 1, I want to share with you 5 things that Sarah and John can do and what you might be able to do as well. And then I'm going to share with you about a tool that I believe is so important right afterwards. So you want to stay with that and hear what that tool is. Now, number 1, they could try a new physical activity together. Now, going to the movies and watching a movie video is not a physical activity, but they're doing something together. Because engaging in physical activity It's one of those ways to help boost endorphins, right? It reduces stress, and it promotes a feeling of closeness and connection. For example, even though I'm not saying my wife and I are going through this actual experience, because we feel very connected, but if I'm outside working, and just recently I was putting down under my back patio some tiles, some hard rubber tiles you can buy at the Costco or Sam's and any of those places, hardware stores. I mean, the Home Depot and so on. And you buy them in a pallet kind of thing, or a pack of 6, and you can what I'm talking about. But anyway, I put in those, and my wife and I will be, sometimes she come out there and sit with me, or help me in any area, because we're both doing that. We're feeling connected. We're feeling we're working together toward a common goal, and we feel like we're both putting it into work. It's a physical activity, and so that becomes a way of a shared experience. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say try a new physical activity. It could be rock climbing. It could be dancing is another way that you could also do that. When we go on a vacation, we love to, on a cruise, for example, we'll dance together. We'll go and we watch other people, or we'll walk around in the ship, or, those are physical activity that bring us closer, and is something you may want to think about in your relationship. Number 2, now this is a very interesting one, because you don't hear much mention about this, but it's something that I also use in my counseling session with couples, depending on their situation. And it's a schedule worry time for trust issues, because this is an unspoken thing, the elephant in the room. When there's a trust issue, it's people want to, I mean, depends on who it is, the infraction came from. It's to kind of walk lightly around it, or not bring it up, or just stay away from it, because it's understandable. But when you are having a major trust issue in your relationship, if you schedule worry time. Now, I mentioned in a past video about setting up a emotional safe space. This is like what you would do in the worry time, where you can have both of you can talk about the issues that you're worried about and why you're worried about it, without any judgment or retribution, any criticism, any weaponizing of the moment, any kind of experiences, emotional reaction to that. Is a safe space where you call a worry time, where let's go into our worry time and talk about what we're worried about. Now, this requires vulnerability, and it may take some risk, but you're trusting your partner that he or she has created a safe enough space for you to have this conversation, and it can help your communication, and it improves trust over time, because you're bringing it for front and center, and you're not acting as if it's not there, right? That's very important. You're not acting as if it's not there. Number 3, incorporate. This is a very interesting one as well, because I find when I've actually asked couples to do this, the opposite happens, and that's to incorporate non-sexual touch. Incorporate non-sexual touch. Now, what I mean by that is where, even though physical touch is important for intimacy, it doesn't have to always be sexual in nature, right? It's like cuddling, holding hands, giving massages, just hugging, anything that creates a feeling of closeness and connection without any kind of pressure to lead to sex. That's what is sometimes essential and important to reignite the intimacy in your relationship. Because sometimes a spouse may feel, especially the wife, I hear more from them than the men, right? Who will feel like every time they see their husband or experience your husband wanting to draw close physically, a hug, a cuddle, in their mind, they're thinking, this is what on their mind. They want one thing, and that's sex. And they feel the pressure coming on, and they may not be feeling it. And so she's like, it's like, almost like, oh man, not now, right? Like, oh, please let it not be so. But if you can get used to the cuddle, hugging, even at nights, you sleep where you just hug your partner, that is important, because you're releasing those oxytocin that are important for this connection that are taking place, and it's essential for the relationship. Number 4, this is one of those which also is interesting. It's called sensory play, right? Sensory play. It's where you're using your senses. Obviously, you hear that word sensory. So it's experiment with sensory play. You're using your senses to that leads to intimacy and arousal. For example, sometimes if you've ever said, like, have used candles or anything that has scent and aroma, and you kind of create an atmosphere where it triggers your senses, and you smell certain things, and it's different, and especially if it has an association for you in your relationship, but you're trying to trigger those senses, right? You have the smell, it's the touch, what you're looking at, how you're, maybe it's how your wife dressed is, in a sexual way, not in a you can decide what that may look like, but so it's a way where it arouses the senses, right? It could be taking a bath together, and just really things that causes the senses to be aroused and reignited, and the excitement that can lead to sexual experiences. But again, it may not lead that way, but it arouses that, and so you recognize that you're still connected with your partner. And number 5, so we mentioned so far that number 1 was try a new physical activity. Number 2, schedule worry time for trust issues. Number 3, incorporate non-sexual touch. Number 4, experiment with sensory play. And number 5 is take turns planning date night. Now, I know it's not necessarily always true. My wife is the one who many times may plan a date night, and it's okay because she doesn't mind doing that. And I'm very much okay with the things she planned, because we know we've been married for almost 40 years. Come on now. We pretty much know what our likes and our tastes are. Doesn't mean it doesn't change, because we like to experiment with new things, new places to go or to eat. And so to experiment with that, we can have the suggestion, because she have more flexibility in this area than I do. So I would just say, hey, let's plan something. I may make some suggestions. So I may not be the one who planned it, but I have an input in the suggestion. So when you take turns and you feel like you're both coming up with these ideas and talking about it, it's another way to allow there to be this connection with your relation, with your partner, and it's creating for exciting and interesting things, right? Especially if you're adventurous, is another way to really connect the spark in your relationship. So these 5 ways I mentioned are ways to transform your relationship and reignite the spark and the intimacy in your relationship. And I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 5 resonated most with you? Are you doing any of these? Do you see how this could work? And make sure you comment below. Let me know which of these resonate with you, or any ideas or thoughts or comments you have, because these unique steps I've outlined can help you to reignite the spark and overcome intimacy issues. Why? Because it's promoting new experiences. It's opening up communication. It's increasing physical and emotional connection. And these are ways to go about doing that. I mentioned before that something that I think is so important when I mention open communication. A lot of times I find couples have a hard time communicating about things that are just not about the kids or work or the weather. And they want to have other conversations, but they just don't know what to talk about. And over the years, I've heard it so much that I really was thinking about, what can I do to help with this situation for couples? And the idea came to me was to create a deck of, it's a tool, but it's called a deck of cards, right? I call it Connect Strong Conversational Cards, that are created for couples to have conversations around many, many topics, but in a very fun and meaningful way, non-threatening. Is where you can have conversations. There's rules that come along with it. I have a PDF where you can follow the rules, because you've got to follow the rules to have maximum results by using these cards. It tells you what to do. It tells you what, when a speaker is speaking, what the listener does, and vice versa. It tells you, basically, it's kind of outlined for you step by step what to do to have, again, maximum use of the cards. And I want to make sure that I make that available to you and tell you about that. And you can have that as of this recording. And I can't promise it will be true if you're watching this video much later, because I'm working on getting this on Amazon, And once again, on Amazon is a full price. But right now, if you go to kingsleygrant.com/cards, kingsleygrant.com/cards, you can actually, I would just go to kingsleygrant.com. You'll see a link there. You can save yourself $10 off the deck of cards. And again, I'm not promising if you go there and say Kingsley is no longer available, because as I mentioned before, it's a time limited thing. And if you get it now, you can save $10 off, and it's up to you. Now, so overall, then, as I said before, that intimacy is a very vital aspect of any relationship, and overcoming intimacy issues can lead to a deeper sense of connection and fulfillment. So what are you going to do about your intimacy issue? What are you going to do about your connection? Now, as I mentioned, taking these unique steps I described, you could reignite the spark in your relationship and improve your emotional and physical connection. But again, it's up to you. So remember to communicate openly, try new things, prioritize intimacy. But here's a want to suggest: with time and effort, it takes time and effort and your willingness to try new things and be vulnerable, you're going to be able to create a stronger and more satisfying relationship with your partner. So thanks for watching, and make sure to comment below so I can know what your thoughts are, any questions you have. I'd love to hear that as well. But before you go, make sure that you do what I've asked you earlier, to smash that subscribe button even now. And if you like what you heard, hit the like button as well. And remember to go to happiermarriagesecrets.com. All the links are down there, and listen to my podcast, right? So with that said, my friend, I want to let us go and make marriages happier again. And until next time, peace out, God bless, and I'll see you on the next video on this channel. So God bless, see you soon.